I'm going to show you how I made this racing rig out of this metal channel. It's more commonly known as Unistrut. And if you look carefully, you'll see it's used on pretty much every commercial building to hold up air conditioning units, cable tray. It's all over the place. We use loads of it at work. And the way it works is very simple. You get these things called channel nuts, or more affectionately known as zebidees. And you poke them in, twist them round, and then you can bolt either equipment or brackets to it anywhere along its length. You can get all sorts of brackets. I'm only using 90° and 45° brackets on this project. To get a rough measure of the size, I drew it up in CAD using dimensions of an average man I found online. I've not verified these, but they looked about right. I've made each cut generous so I can adjust the fit exactly once I'm sat in it. I went on eBay and found a good bucket seat, and my plan is for this to just sit on the floor rather than bolt to the frame itself. That'll make it easier to pull apart and store. It also means it's really easy to adjust it back and forwards because you're just moving the seat. Mine came with floor rails, which was nice, but for some reason one of them didn't really fit, so I had to file it down until it did. Now, just in case I'm wrong about not bolting it to the frame, I've set the width of the entire chassis to match the holes in the seat. So if I do have to extend it out and join the seat in, it won't be difficult to do. Cut the main pieces to length. We'll need the main 2 floor pieces, the 2 uprights, and the 4 widthways pieces. We'll measure and cut the diagonal braces later. The edges will all have nasty burrs and will need cleaning up. An angle grinder with a flapper disc is ideal, but a file will work too. In the 2 floor pieces, drill holes at 25mm spacing all the way along the front third. That's going to give us easy options to move the pedal box back and forward if we need to. I've made a little jig just out of angle aluminium to make sure the holes match up on this and on the pedal box. I'm trying to drill through both bits together so the holes definitely line up. Next we're going to make the pedal box. Now I want to invert my pedals. I've got CSR Elites, so what I could do is take each pedal off individually and mount that to some sort of support. But that would mean every time I wanted to adjust them I have to undo 12 bolts, which sounds a bit annoying. So what I'm going to do instead is swap the throttle and the clutch and then mount the entire thing on its existing mount upside down on a support. That way it's only 4 bolts to adjust it, and I can move the whole lot up and down and slide the whole lot back and forwards. It's very important we size the box so it fits between the 2 main floor runners quite snugly. Mark up all the holes for the pedals to mate to. I've put in several rows so I can adjust the entire pedal set up and down later if I need to. Clamp the 2 sides together and put in several matching holes at 25mm intervals. These will join up with the holes in the frame and allow us to move the entire pedal box forwards and backwards. Now join the sides on using glue and pocket screws. Next we can make the wheel deck. Now, a lot of people like to incline that forwards so the wheels sort of tilted a bit flatter. I'm going to try a flat deck to start with to see how it feels. So this board, 18mm MDF, is going to sit on a pair of supports that are going to bolt to the 2 main uprights. So viewed upside down, it's going to sit like that. Now obviously to make that work we need to cut out around the uprights. I'm going to cut it slightly oversized so there's a bit of room to slide it back and forward if we need to. My aim is to get the screen as close to the back of the wheel as possible so that my eyes are as close to the screen as possible for the best field of view. Mark up the clearances and cut them out with a jigsaw. The seat is far too low like this, directly on the floor, so I'm going to use two 2x4s as shims to lift it off the floor slightly and to give it a bit of support against tipping backwards when I brake hard. I'm just going to drill it and bolt the seat directly to it with coach screws. Now we've got enough bits to do a test assembly. So first of all we're going to make the base. So we get our two long runners, they're the ones with the holes in them. We're going to put one of the widthwise sections at the very end. The other widthwise section isn't quite at the end, it needs to sit back by 100 mil or so. Now attach the uprights. The channel needs to face away from the seat. Now we're going to attach our last two cross pieces, the slotted ones, at the top of the uprights. And we need to space these so they're exactly 100 mil apart to line up with the holes on the back of the screen. I can adjust this once I've got the seat in, but I want to get the monitor lined up so that my eye line is level with about 1/3 down the monitor. Put in a long 90-degree bracket on the front and back side of both uprights. That's going to support the wheel deck. Now, I've used unslotted channel for the uprights, so I'm going to have to drill the back once I've decided on the final height. Slide in the wheel deck. We're going to fix it from underneath with wood screws. Because the holes in the brackets are so big, we're going to have to use penny washers to plug the hole. The initial fit isn't perfect. I may need to adjust it a bit. It's loose for now, but I'm going to bolt the wheel through the deck so I don't have to use the clamp. My aim is to get the real wheel to overlap the on-screen wheel so the perspective is exactly the same. Now the pedals. These should slot right between the rails. Look at that. And then I'm going to pin them in using these quick release pins. By moving the seat forwards and backwards, I can get the wheel distance correct, and then by moving the pedal box back and forwards, I can get the pedals into the right place. That's the opposite of what you'd have in a road car, where you get the seat right for the pedals and then you pull the wheel in and out, but it's fine for what I'm doing. Everything will be a little bit wobbly until we put the diagonal struts in. I'm keen to make them as long as possible so it's nice and stable, but I want to size them so they're low enough that the whole thing can still slide under my desk up until this point. I've got everything sized up and comfortable, so I'm going to mark the positions of all the pieces so I can take it all apart and paint it. Now is a pretty good time if you've discovered any part of it is way too long. You're never going to need all that adjustment like I have with the uprights. This is a good time to trim them off. I love making things, but I am rubbish at finishing them. Just ask about my star map, or the bedside buddy, or the fan in my garden lights. It's because I hate painting. It's just really boring.
far as I'm concerned, things are finished as soon as they're functionally usable, not once you've applied 14 coats of paint to them. To try and make things as easy as possible, I'm going to use Hammerite on the metal, but because it's galvanised, I've got to prime it first with metal primer. Same for the MDF. MDF's a nightmare to paint, so I'm priming it with MDF primer.
Now, a word of warning. I used Hammerite for this because whenever I've used Hammerite in the past, albeit a very long time ago, it was really easy. You just brushed it on, one coat, and you were done. Something's changed. I've put 2 coats on this, and it still looks like a sack of shit. It needs at least 3 coats. It needs rubbing down between coats. I really wouldn't recommend using it. If I was to do this all again, and I may well be stripping it all down and painting it again next weekend, use spray. You know, you're going to have to use tons of cans of it to paint such a funny shape, but just use spray. Just to finish off any of the cut edges, I've got these plastic end caps. They give it a really professional look and also protect any nasty bits that are left inside. All done. Now, some of you are probably wondering, why use steel channel instead of the more popular aluminium extrusion like 80/20? Well, first of all, it's just about using what you've got around. It's easy for me to get hold of this stuff and I know what I'm doing with it. Secondly, it's a lot cheaper. I haven't priced it up, but I would guess that this is less than half the cost of an equivalent aluminium T-channel rig would have been. Now, the cons, it's probably not quite as rigid, especially where the upright meets the floor rails. The contact area is much smaller, which is why we have to use the cross braces to make sure it's nice and sturdy. Secondly, it's quite heavy, which is not a problem when you're using it, but it is a bit of a pain when you want to move it around. Lastly, it's not terribly pretty, although a decent paint job would go some way to helping that. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it helps you if you decide to build your own rig from scratch. I've put links to all the plans in the description. If you've got any questions, just leave a comment below.